today we will be discussing about the conditions that make a quadrilateral a parallelogram. But before that, let us have first the competencies. It aims to determine the conditions that make a quadrilateral a parallelogram. 1. Identify the parts of a parallelogram. 2. Determine the conditions that make a quadrilateral a parallelogram. 3. Realize the importance of finding the similarities and differences between you and your friends or your classmates. Do you know how to play 4 picks 1 word? I will be showing you sets of pictures or sets of 4 pictures, and you are going to think of a word that will determine the picture. What word do you think will determine the first set of picture? Correct. It is parallel. Next, let's proceed to the next set of picture. Correct. It is angle. So these are just 2 words that you can encounter in our lesson for today. Parallel and angle. Do you know the song I Am a Parallelogram? I will be showing you the video clip of the song. Then you are going to determine the characteristics of a parallelogram based on the song. So you will be guided by several questions.
I can be a square or a rectangle, or I can lean over at an angle. I am a parallelogram. I am a parallelogram. Opposite sides are parallel, and that is how you can tell I am a parallelogram. I am a parallelogram. My 4 sides are straight, but the angles at the corners they make aren't always 90 degrees. Measure them and you'll see adjacent angles add up to be 180 degrees. I am a parallelogram. I am a parallelogram. My 4 sides are straight, but the angles at the corners they make aren't always 90 degrees. Measure them and you'll see I am a parallelogram. I am a parallelogram.
Based from the song, what are the parts of a parallelogram? So we have the opposite sides, and the opposite sides are parallel. The other opposite sides are also parallel. Then we also have angles. Then another part is the diagonal. So all of those 3 parts will be discussed in our lesson: the sides, the angles, and the diagonals. The first condition that determines that a quadrilateral is a parallelogram. The first condition is opposite sides of a parallelogram are congruent. Class, when you say congruent, they are of the same measure. They have equal measurements. So let us consider parallelogram A, B, C, and D. Looking at this parallelogram, we can say that segment AB is congruent to segment CD, and segment BC is congruent to segment AD. Now, let us apply that concept or that theorem. If segment AB is equal to 7, how long is segment CD? So that is correct. 7. The other theorem involving parallelogram is that opposite angles are congruent. Let us consider again parallelogram ABCD. So looking at this, one pair of opposite angles is angle A and angle C. The other one is angle B and angle D. If we say that opposite angles of a parallelogram are congruent, and the measurement of angle A is 75 degrees, what do you think is the measure of angle C? Correct, that is 75 degrees. What about if the measure of angle B is 105 degrees? Again, angle B is congruent to which angle? Correct, angle D. Therefore, angle D is also equal to 105 degrees. The next kind of angles are the consecutive angles. When you say consecutive, we can also say that they are adjacent. So, considering parallelogram ABCD, angle A is consecutive with angle B. And it is also consecutive to angle D. Now, what do you think will be the relationship between the consecutive angles? Consecutive angles in parallelograms are supplementary. Class, do you still remember the meaning of supplementary angles? When you say supplementary, those are two angles having the sum of 180 degrees. So let's say angle 1 and angle 2. Angle 1 plus angle 2 is equal to 180 degrees. So considering parallelogram MATH, angle M plus angle A is equal to 180 degrees since they are consecutive or adjacent angles. Another example, angle T plus angle A is equal to 180 degrees, the same as angle T and angle H, angle M and angle H. Those are all pairs of supplementary angles since they are consecutive angles. The next part of a parallelogram is the diagonal. The diagonal has also something to do to determine that a quadrilateral is a parallelogram. But what is a diagonal first? When you say diagonal or diagonals, these are segments that join non-consecutive vertices. When you say non-consecutive, they are non-adjacent. So the two opposite vertices, when you join the two opposite vertices, it forms a diagonal. So considering parallelogram A, B, C, and D again, two diagonals are present in this parallelogram. We have diagonals AC and diagonal BD. If you will notice, class, those two diagonals bisect each other. When you say bisect, it divides the other diagonal into two congruent parts. So looking at parallelogram ABCD again, the point of intersection of the two diagonals is known as the midpoint. So in this parallelogram, point P is the midpoint of diagonal AC and diagonal BD. Therefore, we can say that segment BP is congruent to segment PD. The other one, segment AP, is congruent to segment PC. But take note, class, the diagonals of a parallelogram are not congruent. Therefore, AC is not congruent to BD. Another property involving diagonal is that a diagonal of a parallelogram divides it into two congruent triangles. Again, let us consider parallelogram MATH. TH or parallelogram math. So, having diagonal AH, then the two triangles are formed. So, triangle MAH is congruent to triangle THA. Another one, or it can also be said that triangle MAT is congruent to triangle THM if we draw diagonal MT. Let us apply those theorems or those conditions that make a quadrilateral a parallelogram in order to determine whether the given sentences are true or false. So you will be given 3 minutes to answer the following statements. You just have to write true or false. Now, class, think about it. Why is it important that you know your similarities and differences with your friends or classmates? Do you think your friendship will grow if you know each other very well, if you know their characteristics? So let us have a recap of our lesson. What is a parallelogram again? By definition, opposite sides are parallel. What about those conditions that make a quadrilateral a parallelogram? We have 5 conditions. First, opposite sides are congruent. Second, opposite angles are congruent. Third, consecutive angles are supplementary. Fourth, the diagonals bisect each other. And fifth, diagonal forms two congruent triangle. So if all those 5 characteristics are present in a quadrilateral, then we can say that a quadrilateral is a parallelogram. For your next activity, you are given parallelogram EASY, EASY. Refer to the figure to answer the questions that follow. You are given 3 minutes to answer the following. For your last activity, the given parallelogram is LOVE. You are going to answer the questions in this activity for 5 minutes. For your assignment, read Lesson B, Solving for the Sides, Angles, and Diagonals of a Parallelogram. So that's all for today, class. I hope you gained some concepts about parallelogram and how those conditions can be applied in order to determine whether the given quadrilateral is a parallelogram or not. Thank you and God bless everyone.